Welcome to the deep dive. You guys sent us a ton of articles all about Luigi Mangione and the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This whole case, it's like a true crime thriller, right?
Right.
We've got this like brilliant guy accused of this like shocking crime and cryptic clues at the scene. We even have a motive shrouded in mystery. So we have a lot to unpack. So let's dive in and see what we can figure out.
Absolutely. I think there are so many different angles here.
Right.
It's not just about the crime itself. It's about like societal pressure,
Yeah.
mental health, the dark side of ambition.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, there's just so much to discuss.
So when you first looked at all these sources, what was the first thing that jumped out at you?
The thing that struck me right away was just like the contrast between his background and then this crime.
Right.
This guy is a former valedictorian,
Right.
graduate of UPenn, like multiple degrees from UPenn. He even taught at Stanford at one point.
Yeah, this is not the kind of guy you think of when you picture like a violent crime,
Right.
let alone an assassination.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So let's set the scene here. Take our listeners back to the beginning, December 4th. Crisp morning in Manhattan. Brian Thompson. He's walking to the Hilton Hotel when suddenly, well, I don't want to spoil it, but the sources describe a pretty chilling scene. Multiple shots fired a masked gunman. And get this, he escapes on a city bike.
A city bike.
I know.
That's so interesting to me. Like, what does that tell us? I mean, it implies that he knows the city pretty well, right?
Right.
He wants to blend in. He's not trying to make a dramatic escape or anything.
Yeah.
Was this, like, planned out? Did he consider this beforehand, or was it just, like, a spur-of-the-moment panic thing?
Yeah, it's like he just wanted to disappear into the crowd.
Right.
But he didn't just leave things to chance either. So the shell casings that they found at the scene were engraved with the words deny, defend, and depose.
Wow.
I mean, that's not exactly something you see every day.
No, not at all. And I mean, the words themselves,
Yeah.
they're so connected to, like, the language of law and insurance. You
Yeah.
know, it seems like he was trying to send a message.
Yeah.
But was it to Thompson himself? Was this personal, or was he making like a broader statement about healthcare?
Right.
Was he trying to taunt investigators, or was this like a cry for help, a really messed up way of making his grievances heard?
It's like he wanted to make the investigation into some sort of twisted game, right?
Yeah.
So then 5 days later, they arrest Mangione. And not in some remote hideout or like a tropical island, but at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
McDonald's.
Oh,
That is so bizarre.
it really is.
Like so out of place. And when you think about how calculated the crime seems,
Yeah.
I mean, does this mean he had some kind of mental break, just like lost it?
Well, he wasn't just like enjoying a Big Mac or anything. He had a homemade gun with him, a silencer, fake IDs, even a passport, and a bunch of cash.
Wow. Okay, so that kind of throws a wrench in the whole spontaneous act theory.
Right.
This wasn't just some random outburst.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was clearly planned out.
Right.
But why? If he was getting ready to disappear, where was he going? What was the end game here?
Yeah, was this a statement, a rebellion? Was he trying to escape? Was he just running?
It's hard to say.
So the police also found a 3-page handwritten document with him. Now they're keeping the contents under wraps for the moment.
Of course.
But I mean, you can bet whatever's in those pages, it's the key to understanding his motive.
Oh, absolutely. That's like a puzzle box just waiting to be opened.
Yeah.
Was it like a confession or some kind of manifesto against the healthcare industry?
Right.
Or maybe it was just like a rambling stream of consciousness, like a window into his mental state before all this happened.
Well, so to kind of understand his state of mind better, let's talk about Mangione himself. I mean, we know he was a star student, right? Valedictorian, graduated from UPenn. But the sources also mentioned that he had a pretty troubled personal life.
Okay.
And he was becoming more and more withdrawn from everyone.
Interesting.
In his social media posts, they show someone who is becoming increasingly obsessed with corporate greed and conspiracies.
So that's where things get really interesting to me.
Yeah.
You've got this incredibly intelligent guy,
Right.
but he's like slipping into paranoia and disillusionment.
Right.
Was he a victim of his own intelligence?
Yeah.
I mean, did his ability to analyze and see patterns lead him down this like rabbit hole of distrust?
It's like his brilliant mind.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that was always his greatest strength, it became his biggest weakness and just warped his perception of reality.
It's a classic, tragic hero story in a way.
Right.
And we also have to talk about the ghost gun that was found.
Right.
This wasn't just any random gun. This was 3D printed.
Untraceable.
Untraceable, unregulated.
Right.
And it's a whole new level of access that's really chilling.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Shows the challenges that law enforcement is facing, in our technological world.
It makes you think how many other people could be out there, right? With these kinds of weapons.
Yeah.
And with the same kind of resentment. I
Absolutely.
mean, this case, it's not just about this one guy and this one crime.
Hmm.
It shows us some pretty unsettling truths about the world we live in.
Definitely.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There are still so many questions to answer. So stay with us for part 2 of our deep dive as we keep digging in to the case of Luigi Mangione.
So welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about the case of Luigi Mangione, and I think it's safe to say that it's complicated, right? It's
Yeah.
like one of those puzzles where every piece you put in reveals another layer of complexity.
Right, exactly.
We've covered the crime itself, we've talked about Mangione, but now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the legal battle that's coming up.
Okay, yeah.
So Mangione is fighting extradition to New York, and he's pleaded not guilty.
Right. So do you think his lawyers are going to try to say it was a crime of passion? Like, a good guy pushed too far.
Well, given how much planning went into this, I'd say that's a long shot.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think they'll focus on his mental state.
Okay, so you're thinking maybe some kind of breakdown. Like
Yeah.
they'll use those social media posts we talked about?
Yeah, exactly. Those hints of paranoia and disillusionment.
They could argue that the pressure got to him right. Like the pressure to succeed in those high-stakes worlds. Academia tech.
Right. And combined with whatever personal problems he had,
Yeah.
they could say he wasn't in control of his actions.
But what about all the evidence of planning?
Of course, that's what the prosecution will focus on.
Right, the ghost gun, the fake IDs, the escape route.
Exactly. They'll paint a picture of a cold and calculated killer.
Right.
Someone with a clear motive.
Yeah, and that document, right?
Right. If it has incriminating evidence, they'll use it to say he was driven by revenge.
Or maybe some crazy ideology.
It's possible.
And then there's the ghost gun. I mean, that seems like a huge problem, not just for this case, but for gun control in general.
Oh, absolutely. I think the prosecution will use that to their advantage.
Yeah, like emphasizing how dangerous untraceable firearms are.
Exactly. And they might even try to connect it to a bigger issue, like, society's concerns about these weapons and how easy it is to get them.
This case could become a real flashpoint in the gun control debate.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I mean, think about it. Mangione is not your typical gun violence offender.
Yeah.
He's an Ivy League graduate. He taught at Stanford.
Right. He challenges the stereotype.
And that could make it even more divisive.
Definitely with both sides using it to push their own agenda.
And then there's the media, right? This whole thing is going to be a media circus.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, high-profile victim, brilliant perpetrator, mysterious motive.
It's a perfect storm.
And that kind of coverage could actually affect the trial itself.
Right. The defense might say that all the attention is creating a bias against their client.
Making it impossible to get a fair trial.
Exactly.
But couldn't the prosecution use the media too? Like leak some details and try to sway public opinion?
Oh, absolutely. They could try to paint Mangione in a bad light before he even sets foot in the courtroom.
So we've got this complex legal battle, we've got the media frenzy,
Yeah.
and we have a ton of unanswered questions. So what do you think? Will Mangione be convicted?
It's too early to tell. I mean, it all comes down to the evidence, how good the lawyers are.
And public opinion.
Right. But we have to remember, he's innocent until proven guilty.
Of course. But you have to admit the evidence is pretty strong.
Yeah, planning the weapon, the escape plan.
It's a tough case to defend.
I agree, but the defense could say the evidence is all circumstantial.
Okay.
That it doesn't actually prove he pulled the trigger.
Oh, right.
They could say someone else had the gun.
Okay.
Or that the motive was something else entirely.
It's like a giant chess game, right?
Yeah.
Each side trying to outmaneuver the other.
Yeah.
And the jury gets to decide who wins.
Right. But there's another layer here that I think we need to talk about. The bigger picture. This case raises some really uncomfortable questions about the world we live in.
Like, give me an example.
Well, think about pressure and expectation.
Okay.
Mangione had everything right. Prestigious education, great job.
Right.
But something went wrong.
Yeah, so are you saying that striving for success can actually be dangerous? Like, our obsession with achievement comes at a cost.
Well, I'm not saying it's a direct cause,
Right.
but it's worth thinking about
Yeah.
whether all that pressure, especially in those intense environments, contributes to mental health problems.
And in extreme cases, leads to something like this.
Exactly.
It's like, be careful what you wish for, right? Maybe getting to the top isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Right? Sometimes it can lead you down a much darker path.
And then there's that growing distrust of institutions that we saw in Mangione's social media.
Right. And that feeling seems to be growing everywhere.
Yeah, people are feeling alienated, like the systems are failing them.
And when that happens, when you lose faith in the world, It creates a void.
And what fills that void?
That's the question, isn't it? For some, it's conspiracy theories.
Right.
Finding answers in the darkest corners of the internet.
And for others?
It's withdrawal.
Right.
Hopelessness.
Despair.
And for a tiny few, it might be something much more destructive.
Like what Mangione is accused of doing.
It's possible, but it's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
There are no easy answers.
We have to look beyond the individual case.
Right, and think about what's happening in society.
Understand the root causes, not just the symptoms.
Exactly.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey.
It has.
We started with a crime, and now we're talking about mental health, societal pressures, technology, the erosion of trust.
It shows how connected everything is.
It does.
Every event, every story has a larger context. And to really understand it, you have to dig deeper.
Look beneath the surface.
Exactly.
Well said. So that's it for part 2 of our deep dive into Luigi Mangione.
We've covered a lot.
But there's still more to discuss. So join us for part 3. We'll be looking at how this case might impact healthcare, the gun control debate, and the conversation about mental health. Stay with us. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been through a lot, haven't we?
We have.
The crime Mangione's profile, the legal stuff ahead.
Yeah.
But this case, it's not just about Mangione, is it?
It's so much bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the impact this could have on healthcare.
Right.
We're talking about the CEO of one of the biggest health insurance companies in the country.
Yeah, it's not just about losing a leader. It's about whether this tragedy could actually change the whole system.
Exactly.
Right.
And those words on the shell casings, defend,
Depose.
they tell us something.
Right.
They weren't just random choices.
Yeah, it's like he's pointing a finger right at the insurance industry.
Right.
This deep frustration with the whole system.
Like profits come before people.
And Mangione wasn't just some random guy with a complaint.
Right.
He was brilliant. He understood data systems.
If he felt this way,
Right.
how many others are out there feeling the same?
Silently battling denials, feeling powerless.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah, and his background in data
Right.
makes me think maybe he saw something specific.
At UnitedHealthcare,
Right.
some pattern of denials or a policy he thought was really unfair.
Like his skills gave him an insight that others might have missed.
It's possible.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
But if that's true even a little bit, this case could be a voice for all that frustration.
It could force the industry to look in the mirror
Yeah,
and ask themselves if they're really helping people.
right. And maybe we'll see a push for more transparency,
Absolutely.
stricter regulations,
Maybe.
affordable healthcare options.
It could be a turning point in the whole healthcare debate.
But what about UnitedHealthcare themselves? I mean, this is a PR nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. A crisis on multiple fronts.
Right. They lost their leader, and now their reputation is on the line.
Especially if Mangione's lawyers can make them look bad.
So how do they even move forward from this?
Carefully.
Yeah,
Transparency is key.
right.
They can't hide anything.
Address the concerns
Head on.
and show that they actually care about patients.
Yeah. Show that people are more important than profits.
It's a tough road ahead.
It is.
And then, of course, there's the whole ghost gun issue,
Right.
untraceable firearms, the big problem.
It changes the game for law enforcement.
I mean, anyone can get these weapons.
It seems like it.
Scary thought.
It is.
So do you think this will change the gun control debate?
It might.
Yeah.
It shows what can happen
Right.
when these weapons are so easy to get.
Maybe we'll see stricter regulations on 3D printed guns.
Possibly.
Maybe even a national registry.
It's hard to say.
But gun control is such a divisive issue.
It is.
And Mangione's background makes it even more complicated.
Right.
He's not who you picture when you think about gun violence.
No.
So how do you think this will play out?
It's a wild card.
Yeah,
It could make it harder for either side to use this case.
right.
Some will say it proves anyone can be violent.
Right.
Others will say it was his mental health, not the gun.
We'll see.
We will.
But I think one thing's for sure. This case forces us to look at how easy it is to get guns
Right.
and what can happen because of that.
And we can't forget about the mental health aspect.
Yeah, Mangione's actions, his posts online.
It all suggests there was something going on beneath the surface.
So maybe this case will be a wake-up call
I hope so.
about how important mental health is.
Especially in high-pressure fields like tech and academia.
Right. It could start more conversations
Hopefully.
about the warning signs, about needing support, about getting help before it's too late.
It's about breaking the stigma,
Right.
making it okay to ask for help.
So here we are at the end of our deep dive.
Wow.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
The crime, the suspect, the legal battle, the bigger picture. This case It's about so much more than just one man.
It really is.
It's about our society, our
Yeah.
values, our struggles. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Right.
Which of these issues really grabs people's attention? Healthcare reform, gun control, mental health.
And what about you listening?
Right.
What sticks with you?
What questions do you still have?
What conclusions have you come to?
And how do you think this will all play out in the long run?
Will it change things?
Or will it just be forgotten?
We can't answer those questions for you.
But that's the point of a deep dive, right?
Yeah, to make you think critically.
Engage with the tough issues.
And come to your own conclusions.
It's about being informed and engaged. So keep those brains buzzing.
Keep talking about these things.
Keep learning.
The world is full of stories like this,
Fascinating, unsettling.
waiting to be explored.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.